Welcome to ILTV's Israel Weekly. Our main topics today: over 100 rockets are launched at Israel from Gaza, and new accusations are now being leveled against Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Joining me in the studio to discuss are Editor-in-Chief of Midah Ziv Maor, Meretz Party Knesset member Mossi Raz, Arutz Sheva journalist Yoni Kempinski, and journalist and columnist at Haaretz, Ravit Hecht. Thank you all very much for coming in.
Thank you for hosting us.
So let's turn to our first topic. We return to Gaza, where Israelis and Palestinians have recently seen some of the worst violence since the 2014 war Operation Protective Edge. In just a few days' time, over 100 rockets were fired at southern Israeli cities from the Hamas-controlled Gaza Strip. Israel responded with dozens of targeted airstrikes against alleged Hamas bases of operations, but with the ceasefire already broken and the UN clamoring to blame Israel, it's anyone's guess how this will play out next.
When Paris was attacked by ISIS, the international community stood with Paris. But when Israel is attacked by Hamas, you blame us, the victim. There is no difference between the evil of Hamas and the barbarity of ISIS, Al-Qaeda, or Boko Haram. These organizations do not distinguish in their mission to terrorize innocent people. They are all the same. The only resolution this Council should pass is one that condemns Hamas and designates it a terrorist organization.
Classifying our situation as one of terrorism, we reject that. It is not. It is about the denial of an entire people's human rights and their oppression and dehumanization every single day and for decades. This is a political, territorial rights and justice issue.
All right, now, Knesset member, I'm going to start with you. Do you believe that Israel is responding appropriately to what's going on the border?
Of course not. You can see that the situation is that things are escalating all the time. You say that this was this week, or this Tuesday was what did you say?
Some of the worst.
Some of the worst since 2014. But I remember that 2 or 3 weeks ago, there was one day where 62 persons were killed in one day. So I see the situation only deteriorating. More violence from both sides. When our ambassador to the UN says that we are the victims, I don't agree. We are 50% the victims, but they are 50% the victims. This is bi-national conflict. There is occupation in Gaza, but more than in Gaza, in the West Bank. And the policy of blockade, the policy of occupation, the policy of violence failed. We have to try different alternatives that we never tried. There is the Arab League Peace Initiative, the Hudna Initiative, initiatives of promoting humanitarian situation in Gaza, let people work in Israel, and so other alternatives that we don't use. We use only one alternative, the alternative of violence. And of course, we have way more power than the Palestinians, no question about that.
I keep being amazed about the way that every time I come here, I see someone from the left saying that we have never tried the alternative. We've never tried Oslo. We have never tried Camp David. We've never tried disengagement in 2005. We have never tried anything. Actually, whenever we did give the Israeli left the leverage to treat the Arabs who live here as people who has the chance to become a nation of their own, whenever this happened, we suffered injuries and we became victim of the Arab racism against us. This is what happened over and over again. You cannot say we've never tried an alternative, because this is the result of your alternative. If we have been in Gaza right now, if there was no disengagement in 2005, this all would not have happened. The military would have control over the area, and everything would, there would be no blockade. Arabs would have still able to work in Israeli settlements over there, and everything was way better than it is, much less bloodshed.
Ravit?
Well, I couldn't disagree more, because we could say, I remember I was a soldier during the 90s, and I visited many times in Gaza. Do you remember this Philadelphian street? Exactly. And then there was a terror, and there were also killed soldiers. So, and I want to...
and civilians killed. No one's saying that there was no violence.
That's what I'm saying. So pretending like it happened since 2005, it's wrong. But I think that I want to ask my friends from the right. I mean, I think that Netanyahu should apologize. He owns her, Tzipi Livni, he owns her an apology. He has to apologize because during the 2009 election campaign, he accused her for rescuing Hamas and not collapsing its regime. And actually, since the man was elected, yeah, I mean, he behaves exactly the same because, and what does it prove? It proves that there is no solution. There is no other solution. There is no military solution. The solution also today, you know, many people, and not left-wing supporters, agent experts, and also from the IDF, they say that more generous steps to ease the economy in Gaza would have could have prevent a protective edge, which was the longest war, I think, in the Israeli history, without any serious achievements.
Regarding the humanitarian aid, you all know the facts. You know where the cement is going, right? You know where the money is going. We all know it. It's not even a debate. We know the money is going to tunnels. There's facts that are out there. Everyone knows the fact. We could say,
go deeper than the slogan.
You could start saying, why are they doing this? We have to stop. First of all, we know about the humanitarian aid, where it's going. That's one thing. Now, regarding what you talked about leaving, you know what? I have to agree. After the kindergarten was bombarded, I ran down to the south to start interviewing people to see what was going on. You understood and you felt that it's a different ballgame. It was mortar shell, attack. Mortar shell, attack. Each side, including the Israelis, doing everything they can to end it. And we see this also last night. Everything about, let's end it. Let's make it not such a big issue. We don't want this big, and that's a different ballgame, and I agree with what you're saying. Deterrence. Is there deterrence today? Many people from right and left are saying there is a problem with the deterrence because there was no real blow. In the previous attacks against Gaza, there were serious blows, significant blows. So the Hamas would think, is it worth it for me? Is it not worth it for me? And now they're thinking otherwise. I agree.
That's what I wanted to actually ask, follow up to what you were just saying, is that Israel is often found to be responding to Hamas because they hold Hamas responsible for anything that comes out of the Strip. But it's pretty well acknowledged that they don't believe Hamas is even the one behind the targeted rockets. So is that the best methodology?
First of all, they're attacking in many cases also the jihad bases, and the Hamas
I'm not saying they don't attack.
The Hamas did join in. No, the facts are that they did join in. They started, exactly, if we talk about Iran, it's another issue, but they started by retaliating against jihad and then against Hamas. As I said, everything was very, very careful, maybe too careful this time.
So as for what's going on, who is behind Hamas, there is no doubt that Hamas is currently sovereign in the Gaza Strip and is accountable and responsible for everything that comes out of here. But this is kind of corresponds with what you said earlier about overthrowing Hamas. Basically, Hamas is now held accountable not only in the eyes of the Israelis, but also in the eyes of Iran. Now, the reason for which Israel, its leadership, and the people are much less motivated into conquering Gaza right now and overthrowing Hamas. And I do take you back to 2014 when the Israelis criticized the government heavily for all those ceasefire tango that was going on with our enemies, when we had not only the military force but also the moral justification to overtake the Gaza Strip and put it all to an end. I was among the people who criticized it. But now it is very simple to understand that what we had in Hamas is merely an attention to take our own attention, attempt to take our own attention from the Golan Heights, from Syria, from the Iranian control over there to the Israeli south. And if we would have fallen into this trap, we would have been in a much bigger trouble.
I want to go back to what you have said earlier, because it is not actually, it is contradicting the reality. I want to say first about, even if we tried once an agreement with the Palestinians and it failed, even if it was the truth, and it is not, because we did not deliver Oslo Accords, we did not act according to the agreement, and we failed. Okay, we should try again, because we tried wars so many times and failed. Failed in our aim to achieve security to our citizens. Second, the disengagement was mentioned here. The disengagement was initiated by a right-wing government, Prime Minister Sharon was the head of the Likud, and he refused to have an agreement with the Palestinians. He refused to negotiate with the Palestinians, and this was the outcome. Still, we must admit in the truth. Still, since the disengagement 13 years ago, yes, 115 Israelis were killed, but in the 5 years before, 120. 5 years comparing to 13. So our security is a little bit better. No real change because it was initiated by right wing. And you have to remember that more than 6,400 Palestinians were killed by us since then, and it is not. And you could not achieve security by killing thousands of people.
So yes, we killed thousands of people. It's obviously not a question of numbers. Hassan Nasrallah himself said a year after that the disengagement motivated him to go on the war, Lebanon war. It fuels violence.
So we said.
You want to talk about strategy,
Lebanon?
We're talking about
Let's
tactics.
talk about Lebanon. In Lebanon, in the war, 1,200 soldiers were killed in 18 years. And then 18 years since we withdrew from Lebanon, yes, 170 Israelis were killed. Can you compare 170 to 1,200?
We're not talking about the withdrawal from Lebanon. It's a total different strategic issue.
So you should talk about both of them. But again, to the main issue, we did not try to have an agreement with the Palestinians. Only once in Oslo, 25 years ago, first, we did not achieve final status agreement. And yes, we say that we are going to do that, but we didn't.
Well,
Second, we did not follow the orders of the agreement.
The exploding buses that happened months after the signing of the agreements were part of what happened. That is also.
Let me remind you also, a prime minister was assassinated here. So all kind of sides, or radical sides in both sides.
The Bitcoin also went up. There is no connection.
Did the best. There is no connection.
There is no.
Prime Minister.
Yeah, this is not a terror action. In order.
The buses were exploded only after the massacre that Goldstein has done in Hebron.
But it doesn't matter.
Remember
I don't think that we should, the left should apologize for the Hamas. I mean, if you want me to condemn Hamas, I can do it.
Thousands of Israelis that were
I can do it all here, of course, in order to get, I'm not dreaming about peace, in order to get to a normal situation. And I think that there is no deterrence only it can be achieved only by the military way. It has to be escorted with the political. I mean, agreement, any kind of agreement. Also today we have agreement. We Netanyahu negotiates with Hamas whether he wants it or not.
By the way, in small communities between Jews and Arabs, between Palestinians and Israelis, you see how the economics work. In Gush Etzion, there are many cooperations in many places. But in Gaza, with the Hamas, we're talking about a military confrontation now.
After ethnic cleansing the Gaza Strip of Jews whatsoever, well, this is when the Arabs start to suffer. In other places, when there are Jews and Arabs who live together in Judea and Samaria, things are working out a little bit better in any areas that they are allowed to live together, which is not the territory.
You're counting, by the way, just one second. You're counting.
I reminded you that the numbers of victims, Israeli victims, were
minimizing security to numbers of victims.
Way more before. Don't forget that in those 5 years, but even earlier, 40 settlers were killed.
I have an answer, but I'm going to let Aaron move on.
I'm sorry. I'm very sorry, but yeah, I do have to move on. So, Israeli investigative program, Uvda, is now alleging that in 2011, Prime Minister Netanyahu instructed the then head of the Shin Bet, Yoram HaKohen, to put wiretaps on former Mossad chief Tamir Pardo and former IDF chief of staff Benny Gantz. The damning report does go on to claim that, according to unnamed sources, HaKohen turned down the request. But both Netanyahu and HaKohen have now stated emphatically that the request was never even made. Still, compiled with the corruption allegations already targeting the prime minister, many in Israel are calling for another investigation to be opened.
יש איזו תוכנית שמתיימרת להציג עובדות, והיא טענה שאני הנחיתי את ראש השב"כ לשעבר להאזין לרמטכ"ל ולראש המוסד. יש רק בעיה אחת עם זה. זה שקר מוחלט. לא רק אני אומר את זה, גם ראש השב"כ לשעבר אומר, זה הבל, זה שקר.
So, first of all, Ziv, what are your initial reactions to this
First of all,
report?
let me react to your introduction, which was quite distorted. We had a former head of Mossad that is openly saying that upon receiving a classified order from the prime minister, from his in charge, going and consulting with people who is not allowed to consult with about the order. First of all, he goes into national television and admits committing a felony of disclosing confidential information. And I do wish to see, yes, no doubt about it. Sure. And I do wish to see the way that the police is going to deal with those felonies, which are very, very strict, 3 years in prison for that. As for your specific question, I do believe that the majority of Israeli public see no problem whatsoever with the prime minister making sure that his subordinates are making up to his order, which he is entitled to give. Once, specifically in security regarding orders, super sensitive and super exclusive and super classified issues like that, he has the slightest fear that an order is not only not going to be committed, but also someone is going to spread information out. He has every right to wire it up, which he did not do.
Did it happen or not?
It did not happen.
You see what happened there? The head of the Mossad got illegal order, and he didn't want to deliver. He consulted with some other people, and he is the criminal. It's amazing, but I want to tell you something. It didn't happen because we have in the head of our services, we still have, I think, people who think before they do. And it is very important. And if Prime Minister Netanyahu wanted to listen to the head of staff, Benny Gantz, I fully recommend him to listen to what he says. He said that Israel must have peace agreement with the Palestinians, and we have partner for that. So this is what he has to listen. And all the others.
Candidate on behalf of the Labour Party is a leftist. It's all right. It's every right to be so. But regardless
until
of that,
now, he is not a candidate by everybody. According to the law, he cannot be a candidate until now. So don't put him in a
I wonder whether there is a possibility that Netanyahu will do something that his supporters won't protect him by any case. I mean, it's amazing because what we can see here. I mean, I want to react to respond what Netanyahu said. That's not exactly what Yoram Cohen, the previous chief of head of Shabak, said. I think that the key word in his denial, of Cohen is of course the word specifically. He said, I didn't get this order specifically to spy or to monitor or whatever Gantz and
to Pedro. So as to facts, if you refer to facts...
So what does it mean? Why did he use, and I'm sure that Yoram Cohen read and thought, very carefully.
Sure.
So why did he choose the word specifically? And also, I think that Dayan, if I don't know if I wrote it in order to quote, but I can find it out now. She said she didn't claim that Cohen was ordered to monitor only or specifically Pardo and Gantz.
That's the thing. If you go as to analyzing the word, splitting hairs, did he use the word specifically or not? Let's go.
No, it's not.
Guys, I have a point. Let's go to the initial report and see that Pardo have never said he was wiretapped. It was only a question. Ilana then asked him, what about if you were to be wiretapped? And he said, I would not authorize it according to what she asked, according to my own judgment. And this is what it was not stated.
You just remember, you just justified it and said that it did not happen. And it is important to notice, that word specific became viral. It became really funny that he was actually using a very specific word. Why?
Well, I mean,
the legal advisor, the legal
has been used.
But to use it because why? In Dayan's report, she said that he was given an order to tap many sources, many senior officials, anyone who is exposed to the secret, a shos, shomel sod, is part of the secret, because it was part of a specific operation that they were dealing with. No one knows what it is exactly. And a legal advisor of Shabak said today on Army radio that these things did happen, that there were, general orders or general, that it's not that Netanyahu gives an order, because Netanyahu never gives an order to a Shabak leader on that. It goes the other way around. The Shabak head goes to the prime minister and requests the authorization to tap. So the only thing that could have happened, and you're justifying it by what you said before, is yes, it could be that Netanyahu said, listen, we have serious problems in the senior people. They're talking to people. I want to know, not about policy, security-wise. And it could be that he asked them, is it possible And he said no, and that's it. And it's a done deal. And I don't think it's so dramatic. It's important.
I mean,
There is
think
one more possibility about it.
former Shin Bet head Avi Dichter also said that this was next to impossible to have targeted Pardo and
Again,
Gantz.
because he related to, could it be that the prime minister gave an order with these words, order and specifically?
Yeah.
No, it just can't be.
It
Legally,
can't.
it can't happen, and that's true.
It did happen
But
with
that's why-
Aryeh Deri
But also,
thing in 1980s.
Cohen's response actually, I think that improves the fact that, you know,
You think he confirmed it?
yeah,
that he did it?
in a way, because he said not specifically to
He confirmed what?
to wire them, but
that the prime minister is monitoring to make sure that no one leaks any sensitive information. That he also monitors the highest part of the Israel's intelligence.
Including
What's the
them.
problem with it? Yes.
Including
Where's
them.
the problem? Listen, the concept of
Okay, so you
guards.
say that there is no problem, but don't say that it didn't
Well,
happen.
first of all, I believe
So now you
Netanyahu.
admit that it
I
happened.
believe Netanyahu, and I believe Yoram Cohen. I have no reason to believe Ilana Dayan, who was proven to be a liar in Supreme Court in Israel 10 years ago. I have no reason to believe her. Well, the Supreme Court
This is
says that she's cooking stories. This comes from the verdict of the Supreme Court.
no, the Supreme
Well,
Court, the Supreme.
You look into the facts. Either way, I do believe that
I
it will
do
happen.
agree.
But
It's not the Supreme Court. You are wrong.
It is
You are wrong. This
Supreme
is a
Court
lie.
when overturning.
I don't think Dayan is the issue. I think that there is a phenomenon
Well,
here that
Dayan
we're
is the
seeing.
issue.
I think that there is a phenomenon here that we're seeing.
Diane
with-
is the issue. She's the prime minister, right?
Diane is not the issue. The issue is that there is a phenomenon of Pardo, of Dagan, of blessed memory. People after their role speaking want to express their things. Now we know that always in the secret meetings there are many dialogues, debates. Should everything come out when a person is already retired, sitting in his home, not part of what's going on, doesn't maybe think of the implications and what it means? I don't think so.
So what's the
I think
problem with
what is-
Prime Minister Netanyahu that everybody he nominates then is against him?
Well, the pressure,
happens with him?
We're gonna
the
have
old
to-
school
the pressure.
media.
Oh,
and the
come
old
on
school
again.
media is
Oh,
pulling.
I think we're gonna have to-
everyone
we're gonna have to
was
save that
something.
for
At least
next
this
time.
should admit
This is
that he
so
doesn't
funny.
know who to nominate.
And this is why
What
Ilana
is
Dayan
really
is the story.
disturbing him is the constant lack of trust that Netanyahu, the bad relationships between Netanyahu and all the those authorities, that we can see it again and again, and also in this case.
Well, we have we're leaving everybody with a lot to think about now. Unfortunately, I do have to cut off the conversation. So that's our time for today's ILTV's Israel Weekly. Again, I'd like to thank our guest, Knesset member Moshe Raz, Ziv Maor, Ravit Hecht, and Yoni Kempinski. And thanks to all of you for tuning in. Remember to follow us on Facebook at Israel English News and on Twitter at ILTV News. I'm Aaron Porras, and we'll see you next week.